We're going to talk about whiteness. And it may seem strange to some of you, especially my white students, because often we don't think about whiteness as a thing, right? Of course, we've thought about it more and more. Probably all of us have since the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter uprisings that have made us all really question our roles in society and how we can help lift the voices of other people who have traditionally been oppressed in many different ways. So let's talk about whiteness. Where did whiteness come from, right? When did being white become a thing? Often we think of it as sort of a default, right? I'm white, so I don't have an ethnicity, or I'm white, so I don't really have culture. Not true, right? Everybody has culture, everyone has an ethnicity. For me, as a white person, my ethnic heritage happens to be European, right? European American, or what sometimes people call Anglo-American. But there's a point at which whiteness enters into the language, at least in the United States, and that's in 1691 with a series of laws that use the term white to distinguish people in the Virginia colony. So in the court documents in Virginia at this time, they are attempting to prevent marriage between the English settlers and slaves or descendants of slaves. And instead of using religious terminology, which up to this point has been the way to define differences among people, they use the term white. This is the first time we see it in a sort of public legal way. So for those of you who've never thought about whiteness before, you can think about it as somewhat like a goldfish in water, right? If we've never had to worry about our skin color or our so-called race, which we might more correctly call our ethnicity, we might have never really thought about it. It's thought of as a default. When I go to Target, I go to the the hair section for shampoo and conditioner. Some of my Black friends have to go to the ethnic hair section because somehow they're ethnic and I'm not. So there are ways in which whiteness becomes invisible. Also, generally whiteness is, it's the sort of, the people in power tend to be white. If you look at government, you look at, people in power in corporations, for instance. I'm doing some research on space right now, and all the white billionaires are talking about getting us to Mars and actually making steps, taking steps towards getting us to Mars. Their idea of getting to Mars and who's going to be able to live there is maybe not as diverse as some of us might want, but that's a whole other story. So, so we have to think about whiteness as another racialized identity. Whiteness has a meaning just like any other identity does. I hope you'll be more aware of it if you haven't been before. And if you have been, then good for you. And I hope that you continue to think about racialized identities.